Yes, you can start now, Shikha.
Okay, our videos are acha, okay, it's working. So I will start the session. Hello everyone, good evening. I am Shikha Singh, volunteering as Vice President Professional Development at PMI Mumbai chapter. I hold a BE in Production Engineering from Mumbai University, a green belt in Lean Six Sigma, and PMP certified from PMI. Professionally, I am working at LRQA Inspection Services India LLP at Mumbai and having over 18 plus years of experience in operations of inspection services. And right now, I'm handling global projects. So I welcome everyone for today's Pit Stop session. So PM PitStop provides a platform where subject matter experts and project managers from many industries share their experiences and demonstrate the usage of various tools and techniques in the real world. So today's topic is robotic process automation, which is also called RPA. And to present this topic is Mr. Shantilal Nakrani, who is AVP Head Delivery Intelligent Automation at Datamatics Global Services Limited. So I will just give a brief introduction of the about the speaker, Mr. Shantilal. So Shantilal Nakrani brings over 24 years of rich IT experience, specializing in software delivery and intelligent automation. He holds a postgraduate diploma in AI ML and is a certified AWS solution architect, PMP, and Scrum Master with deep expertise in process engineering, product development, and program management. Shantilal has led cross-functional teams for digital transformation in BFSI, healthcare, manufacturing, and logistics sectors. Shantilal is known for aligning technology with business outcomes, contributing to strategic pre-sales and solution consulting, and consistently driving innovation, efficiency, and delivery excellence. So I welcome Shantilal for this session, and I will be sharing his LinkedIn profile in the chat box. So please connect with him, and also please post questions in the chat box, and same will be answered at the end of the session by the speaker. So I request Shantilal to start his session, please. Thank you. I'll just
Yeah,
unshare.
thanks.
I'll just unshare my screen.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shikha. So let me share my screen. I hope the screen is visible to all of you.
Yes.
Okay. So thanks, Shikha, for the introduction. So robotic process automation. This is the session that I am going to conduct today. And I believe, like most of the people, you are aware of this robotic process automation. What is the robotic process automation? So basically, see, there are many technologies that actually drives the digital transformation in the industry. For example, you can take it like the intelligent document processing, then the cloud computing, then IoT, then the blockchains, and then the intelligent business process automation. So these all are different platforms and technologies enables the digital transformation. And one of them is the robotic process automations. So we will explore more on the process automation today. So what I'm going to cover, like here you can see the agenda. So I will give the introduction about the RPA and how to do the process assessments. We'll talk about some architectures and components, some use cases across the industries, then the implementation life cycles, then how to govern and how to manage the change management in the RPA processes, and the common pitfalls that we should avoid, while we do the RP implementation in the enterprise, and to the best practice that we should follow. And what is the future trends of the RPA? Because RPA is not new now; it is almost been now 6 to 7 years that RPS come into the market. Okay, so then what is going forward after the RP? So RPA, as you know, like it is a software technology, or you can say it's a software program which actually mimics the user actions on the screens. So the way like user types it the data onto the screen, let's select the data onto the screens, right? clicks the button or opens some application, the same way the software application also do the same action, like all it mimics the human actions. So this is actually a software bot or a software application. It's not a physical bot or a physical, any device. And these we call as a digital workforce, so which runs a 24 by 7 on the computer, like whether it is a laptop or it is a desktop machine or it is a server grade machines. And just remember, when this bot runs, like it mimics the human action, so it doesn't take any kind of, you can say, the decision. It just blindly follows the rules that actually the process has. And you might be knowing, like like RPA, these terms actually coined by the Gartner's in few years back. And before, you know that RPS actually is being used, but that was in use for the testing purposes. You might have seen there are automated tested software, right? That used to do the similar thing. That used to execute the test cases on the various application and gives a report of the pass and success the test cases, right? But that were actually, people have not decided like that the same thing we can use into the production floor also. But later on, after Gartner has come up with these RPA, the people started using in the production systems as well. So now moving ahead, like what is the key characteristic of RPA? So I talked about like RPA is a software applications, right? But just just remember, like this is a non-invasive application. Like it does not change any of your existing processes or any of your existing application. It is a, you can say, one kind of layer, or it these applications works on your existing process or infra. And as I mentioned, like it mimics the human action, right? And it executes in a very structured way. It executes all the rules of the processes. And it can work on the all the legacies web and desktop application. So here there is no, we can say, like compulsion or any limitation that this technology works on very specific systems or specific environment or specific underlying application. It works on all the kind of systems, whether it is a legacy system or a new system, desktop or web based system. And since it is a external layer and it doesn't do any changes in the existing application, so it is very fast to deploy and it is highly scalable. So these are the key characteristics of the RPA. And now let's say, see, this RPA actually basically is used for the automation, and it's not like the people have started doing the automation after the RPA came. People were doing the automation. So what is the traditional way of automation doing that? So people were actually creating the APIs, people were writing some code, and they were integrating two systems, right? So that at least the data available from the one system can be made available to the another system through the API or through the some remote procedure calls. So these were automation were doing, but the this like in that case actually there was some limitation of the automation. You are not able to do the full process automation in that case. So once the RPS came and RP actually does the UI level interaction, so here actually the scope has increased. So we can started doing the end-to-end automation of the processes. So earlier that was some flexibility issues, as we cannot do the entire process automation because certain steps has to be done by the user on the UI, right? And now that's why that was the limitation of the traditional automation. But since now RPS worked on the UI, so that flexibility has actually increased. Like we can do automation at all interaction that a human does on the system. Time to deploy also, it become a short. Like earlier, it used to take a long time because whatever the code you write, whatever the API you write, so you have to do the thorough validations there. You have to build the business logic in the API, and you have to test the API as well. But now in RPA case, since it is works on the underlying systems, so those validations are already built. Let's say, for example, I want to submit my response to some Google form. Let's say that is a process. So now there are certain validations already built in the Google Forms, right? Like the field accepts only numeric value. The particular field, just date field, just or you can say date of birth field, just accept the numeric value, or the name field just will express the characters value, right, or strings. So that validation is already built. We don't have to write the special validations the way actually we used to write in the API level. So that's why the time to deploy is become very fast. Maintenance is very easy, right? If you want to change any rules. You just because these application is like when you develop the bot, so it is basically use the low code no code platform, or the platform where you have to do the drag and drop of the components. So with the small minimum effort, we can do the any changes. And the business involvement is little bit high here. The reason is why, because this is mainly used for the end-to-end automation. So where actually business knows actually the flow of the processes. Like there is a big core banking system, so particular processes, which options they have to select, where to navigate, what are the different options on the screen they have to select, what kind of data they have to put, if certain kind of exception will be thrown by the user, so how to handle that exception, how the user will respond to that exception. So this is the actually the business user knows that things. So that's why the involvement of the business user in the RPA development process is high. So moving to the next, like how will you identify the right candidate for this automation? Like there are many processes in the organization, but how will you identify which process is right? So there are 5 to 7 key areas that we should keep in mind. So one thing, whatever the process you select, so that process should be very rule driven. It should have some very specific steps, and those specific
Just
steps will be
Shantilal, just a small request from 2 or 3 attendees that why
sure.
don't you just stop? Just can you hide the stop sharing pop-up which is happening
Yeah,
on
yeah, sure,
the,
sure.
yeah, so that
So
they can see. Thank you.
thanks, Shika. So I have done that.
Okay.
So the process has to be a rule driven, and the process has to electrically or electronically trigger start process. So that should not be like a some physical document received by some department. No, not like that. So it has to be started from the computer itself, from the machine itself. And if the process involves some calculations, and data intensives, and it should or even any process which should perform the out of hours, so those all are characteristic of the processes which are ideal candidate for the automations where we can apply the RPA there. So how will you do the assessment? Let's say you have the 10 to 12 processes in your mind which satisfy the criteria, but now how do you do the assessment of those processes? How do you derive the business value of the RPA out of those processes? So as I said, like no, not all the processes are suitable for RPA. The characteristics I already explained to you. So right assessments and like the process once you automate, it should give the higher ROI, and it should be quick wins. It should not like you take a very big process and try to apply the RPA there, and it will you not get desired the output out of it, because it has a lot of exceptions are there. There are many places where you need to take a human decision. So generally avoid those kind of processes. And once and you whatever the process you select, right? Once you do the assessments, and then you prioritize this processes, like which process you have to take the first for the automation. After selecting the processes, the very first process that you take for the automation, that is also very important. So there are many assessment frameworks. Those simple ones are, uh, you just check about whether the process is stable or not, whether the process is ready for the automations or not, and what the business value you derive. So now from the process stability point of view, so you should ask very simple question like, can this process be automated? This is very simple question first you ask when you select this process. The second is this process is ready for the automation? The second good question that we should ask. And the if pass through this question answer you do, then you check out the business value, that what business value you derive out of it. So now let's see, like in process stability, what are the criteria and what kind of question you should ask. So like in a process suitability, uh, as I mentioned, rule based, standardized, high volume, repetitive, and these are the questions you should typically ask when you select the processes. Like in rule based, is this process driven by the clear logical rules? Is it done in the same way every time? Like whatever the steps you follow, so for the next record or next transaction, the rule should not be different. It should be the same rule followed for the repetitive transactions. And the process should be very high volume. It should not like you run the process only for 5 minutes in a month or only for an hour in a year. So that still you can do the RP automation. It's not like that you cannot do the RP automation, but it doesn't give you the ROI that you are looking for. and the low exceptions, like you how frequent exception you are getting from the that business process that you are looking for the automation. So minimum deviation, minimum decision points, we ideally candidate for the automations. And digital input, as I talked about, like the process should be electronically triggered. So these are the typical question you ask from the process suitability, and you can you can put some numbers, like you can decide scale of 1 to 5, right? And you can give your points, like for the rule based criteria is there, and now what is the number I should put? Okay, let's say I selected one process for the accounts payable. Now it is a definitely a rule based, so I put a 5 number here. Whether this process is standardized and stable, yes, it is standardized stable, I put a number 5. And then high volume are, let's say, not that good, mid side volume, I put a number 4. So that way you can put some number or put some rank there, and finally we'll add up those number and we will come up with some average number. So let's say we have used the scale of 1 to 5, and the average is getting above 3, then I think so we should go for the RP automation on that process. If it is a 4 and 5, then definitely we should go ahead. But if it is around below 3, then we should give our second thought on that, whether we should go for the automation or not. The second, there was the process readiness. So for the process readiness, these are the criteria, like document availability, stakeholder buying should be the must, application stability. And these are the questions you should ask to get the answers. Like for documentation availability, our SOPs or workflows are documented. Well documented process will have an edge, because then the person who is working on the automation part, the clear cut or restrictions and steps are defined. So they just have to follow those steps to design the bot. They don't have to ask for, or they don't have to read too much documentation. They don't have to sit with the business user too long, because the all the SOPs and workflows are well documented. And there has to be a stakeholder buy-in. So for which department, whatever the department you select for the automations, like maybe the accounts, maybe the IT, maybe the HR. So all the those stakeholders for this department, they should have buy-in on this. And the stability of the application is very much important. If the application is no stable, it shows infrequent exception, or the application is undergoing changes. So I think so that time you should avoid this process. You give the low numbers to this exception handling. So all the exception, like every process has certain kind of exception in between. So all the or if all these exception are well documented, so that helps for the RPA developer to handle those exceptions. If the exceptions are not handled in the document or not covered in the document, so what happens? Like like in a given process, when the bot runs, right, it tries, when it executes, it will have the different data incoming, and it posts the different data onto the screen. And if any exception occurs and that is not documented, is not covered in RPA, the bot will stuck there. So the all the exceptions are very important, covered when you implement the RPA. And strategic alignment, like the process should not change too much frequently, because if the process changes, the rules changes, maybe the UI of the application changes, then again bot will go under the change. So the stability and the frequency of the change should be stability should be very high, and the change of the frequency should be very. Then the business value. This is the last assessment in framework, the third point. So from the business perspective, definitely why we are doing the automation, to save the FT cost and for the cost reduction, and we reduce the errors. And even if there is some audit or compliance is required, so the RP actually helps in the compliance and audited part as well. So these are the typical question you should ask when you get the you know, you can say the numbers from the business value criteria, right? So these are the criteria, and you should ask these typical questions. So once you
Uh,
have all the,
Shantilal, we cannot see your slides.
okay,
I think just 2 minutes back it got this one. So can you
okay,
just reshare
sure, sure.
again?
Let me reshare. Okay, yes. Is it visible now, Shika?
Yes, now it's visible.
Okay, thanks. So I talked about this process readiness, and these are the criteria, and these are the typical question you should ask to derive some values. And now I'm talking about the business value. So FT cost reductions, error reduction, customer experience. So these are the typical criteria to derive the business value in the assessment framework. And these are the typical question you should ask, And as I mentioned, you give some number 1 to 5, and then you can average out the number, and you can see, check whether the average is, below three, or sorry, below three. Then you should not take the process. And this is the typical practice actually generally we are following with the, while we are actually selecting the process for the automation. And finally, when you have the numbers, then you can definitely have some, uh, something in mind, like how the process is complex, what the business value will benefit. So you can see in the x-axis the business complexity from low to high, and the business benefit from low to high. So on the lower quadrant, left and bottom side, so this is the low hanging fruit. So low complex but low benefit, you should quickly implement for the RPA, because that is the where actually you start the RP implementation. As I said earlier, like you should not start with the very big or complex processes. You start with the low hanging fruit. So the process following in this quadrant is the ideal candidate to start with any organization if they want to start the RP automation. Then there is a low complexity, but business value is very high. So of course, this is a straight away. There is no brainer. You should immediately take the next processes in the pipeline to for the RP implementation, because that is our quick wins. And if the process complexity is very high, but business benefit is very low, I think so you should avoid or defer the process, because these are the processes where you get the score of less than three, as I mentioned. And the another one is like the high process complexity and the high business benefit. These are all the strategic automation. So these are generally will be the, I could say, a very large processes or complex processes. So most of the banks actually, we have automated many complex processes there, but of course the time to take those process to automate takes generally more time. Generally quick wins and the low hanging fruits will be done in let's say 2 to or we can say 4 to 7 or 6 weeks we can do it. Like 1.5 month, 1 month is we can go like that processing. But the processes which falls on the strategic automation, that takes generally more than 3 to 4 months to automate, because it has a several systems interaction happening. There are many screens are involved in that process. There are many files and business rules are there. So generally those processes is a falls under the high complexity, and but gives a high benefit, because large team sizes are working on that processes. Some of the part is being executed after office hour. So these are actually the processes which are high complex, but that gives a benefit, good benefit to the organization. So what are the tools and techniques for the process automation? There are many tools and available in the market, like Celonis is available, UiPath process mining tools are available. There are other tools are also available which help you to mine the process or do the discovery of the process. So those tools generally have this similar kind of question what we have discussed, so that you can push those answers there, like in terms of the numeric value, in terms of some yes or no, and then automatically you can get the some report kind of out of it, and you can decide whether we should go for the automation or not. And the another one is, you sit with the user and discuss with the business user and ask certain questions. And from that, you can, derive like whether we should go for the automation for this process or not. Or you can do the workshop with the SMEs and the business user, where actually you can show certain use cases to them so that they can get the convinced. Like sometimes what happens, like uh, many of the customer we have seen, like when we propose the RPA for their certain processes, so they are not pretty much convinced about that, because they think that no, this cannot be automated because it has certain very complex rule, it is interacting with the multiple systems, there are certain exceptions are coming in between. So when we demonstrate, or when we show them the similar processes, right, which we have automated for the other customers or other verticals, right, so then they get the convince. So then so that the workshop with the SM is very important, because there are different stakeholders are involved in that. IT is involved, business users are involved. So that gives a actually very good insight to the your customers also, and gives the confidence to the customer that we can go for the RPA for certain kind of process. And of course, why we are doing the automation, as well, saving the FTs and reduce the cost. And also it should improve the operational efficiency, because now most of the steps will be carried out by the software, so human interaction will be less. some of the processes where zero human interaction is required, bot will run 24 by 7 whenever data is available, right? So definitely it will increase your TAT also, or increase the or improve the operational efficiency, and you will get the quick ROI because you don't have to wait after 1 month, to check the ROI. Because moment you deploy the bot on the production, immediately you will know that the person when was working without the automation, the throughput of that person, let's say, process 500 or 100 records per day, right? Now with the automation, only he's spending, let's say, 2 or 3 hours and doing the or executing the same amount of work. So you can get the immediately ROI out of that process from the day one. So now let's talk about some, what is the RP ecosystems, what are the tools and components are involved, because we have talked about the processes and how to select the processes. Now let's talk about how, which tools we are used, and what those tools are actually useful, how they will help the developer or implementer to implement the automations. So there are actually three major components. One is the studio, which helps the developer to design the bot, to implement the automations. Then another one is the outcome of that studio. So once you developed or flow on the studio, which is a local no-code platform generally, because it has all kind of components. The developer has to drag and drop the right component. You know, they have to configure certain types of the values into the component, and then once they build that flow, the outcome is the bot, which is the robotic bot, software bot that I talked about in the very first slide. And after that, there is the orchestrator. So once these bots are ready, these bots are has to be managed or driven by some orchestrator kind of thing, or central command application kind of thing, from where you can upload this all this bot, and you can deploy, or you can manage the deployment. You can manage their schedules, their parameters, some configuration is required, so that all you can manage centrally. So there are the major three components of the RP ecosystem. One is the studio, from technology point of view, and this bot and this orchestrator. So let's now go one by one. What is the studio? So this is a typical actually integrated development environment when we talk about the ID, right? As we have the Visual Studio or Visual Code, right? Where it is a typical development environment, right? Which has a lot of options to compile, to write, to you can say add some reference, add some components, third party component, add some nuggets, right? So similarly, these also have some studio where there are a lot of visual, you can say the components are there, right? And you can just drag and drop on the canvas. You can connect those components. There are ready, some connectors are available for the, let's say, Excel, SAP, some mainframe system, some Salesforce, right? Let's say if you want to connect the Salesforce, then there is a ready component is available in the studio. You just drag and drop, apply some configuration, apply some server names, credentials, and it will connect. So very special studios available for designing the bots. So it is a work, as I said, is a visual workflow design. Often without, you don't have to write much code there. Sometimes if there is some special logic, so you can write some, some VB script or some C sharp script there. So that which is not available as a part of the component, but you want to have as your as a rule which is there in the process, you can write some code there. And this studio also allows the debugging. You can actually debug these steps the way we debugging the Visual Studio or Eclipse, Java Eclipse, right? Studio. So similarly, we can here do the debugging. We can put the breakpoints there. We can assign some variable values in the runtimes. So that all the IDE features are there in the studio, whichever the studio, like UFA Studio or Automation Anywhere Studio, or any other studios available in the market, which are the top, we can say the RPA tools available in the market. And also, this studio actually helps you to build a reusable component, so that the next process which you are going to automate it, and the same steps available in that process also. For example, let's say in the banking domain, like there are many processes which interacts with the core banking system. For example, Finacle. So now every process has a steps login to the Finacle, starting the Finacle application and do the login with the appropriate credential. So this is a very fixed step, right? So once you create a component, right, for one process, right, that the same component you can use in the next process. You don't have to again design the same steps in the next bot, right? And there are many such components, right? You can say sending the emails, or writing the process data, or you can say the steps in the process log file, or writing the error logs file. So you can, these are the ready, you can say, you can uh, create those steps one time in the studio, and you can make it is a reusable reusable component, and you can use it in the your next upcoming bot that you are going to develop. So what happens, like this way, the next bot that you develop, it becomes very fast, because many steps already been designed and developed by you. And version control, because this studio generally gives you a version control. You can integrate it with the TFS or any other version control software available in the market. And now this is actually the outcome of the studio. Whatever the bot you design, right? So there are actually mainly the three RPA bot, three kinds of RPA bot we can thought of here. One is the attended bot, and unattended and hybrid. So what is attended bot? Attended bot actually is the bot will be triggered by the human. It will not automatically start. So these typically attended bots are the runs on the user machines. They are actually triggered by the human or person, and it is works in the real time. For example, let's say a customer service agent who is actually handling the call, right, in a call center, for example, and he or she wants to have some queries regarding the some, let's say, loan account, or something kind of EMI, or some any wants to want to know about some different products that the customer is client is offering. So if the that customer agent gets certain number or telephone number or some loan account number, and it gives the to the attended bot. So attended bot, what does it, automatically directly goes to the different systems and pull out the data about the caller, and it puts in front of the caller, the person who is sitting on the desk. So so you can properly, or I can say, like, handle the customer's query efficiently, because all the customer's data is in front of the person. So he or she doesn't have to ask many questions to the person who is on the call, right? So these are the typically attended bot which runs quickly and triggered by the user manually on their machines. And the second category is the unattended bots. So these bots are typically scheduled bots which triggers automatically at certain particular time, and it runs basically on the server, because these servers handle those kind of applications like IS services, Windows services, schedulers, and these unattended applications kind of thing. And these are basically used in the back office tasks, like for example, let's say after office hour, or it may be midnight, you have to generate one report, or you have to do certain kind of the reconciliation, right? Downloading the report from this system, and downloading some of the reports from the other systems, and just match those report, and create some reconciliation and generate the reconciled report out of it. So here actually you don't require any human interest such, because just you need the two reports and certain business logic, right? And bot will definitely automatically log into the system and download the report as per the defined step, right? So these kind of processes are actually we can automate it, and the unattended bot will handle it very well, because the human intervention is not required at all. And the third one is the hybrid. Mostly we are actually is attended, but major of the component is unattended. And these are basically very large kind of processes, where trigger is, let's say, human trigger, like human has to activate the processes, but rest of the process will be triggered by or handled by the unattended bot. And in these hybrid bots, there are certain bots which is attended and certain bots are unattended. For example, here I have given the example like loan processing workflow, which starts with the attended bot. So connect the
Shantilal,
customer
your
data.
video is off.
No, no, I have shared with you.
Okay, I think there is some network issue. No problem. You carry on. We can hear you.
Sure. So like
Amol,
the
can
loan,
you hear? Can you hear me? Because there is some.
no, I can hear you very well, Shika.
Okay, your video has stopped actually. We cannot see you. That's why problem.
Okay, okay. Let me share
Can you
that
just
again.
off on again? Yeah, now we can see. Yes, yeah. Yes, please
Sure.
carry on.
Yep. Thank you. So, like loan processing, generally it's a large process and complex process. So there are certain steps. Attended bot can start and trigger, and the rest of the data, like like collecting the customer data from the different systems, checking the credits, and updating the different systems, and that will be taken care by separately, because generally the loan processing process actually handled by the big workflow, right? So certain steps you don't require a human to be there, right? So those kinds of steps will be handled by the unattended bot. So attended and unattended become the hybrid scenarios. And the last component, which is a very, very important component in the ERP ecosystem, which is the orchestrator. So what is the role of orchestrator? Like orchestrator actually is the repository of all the bots. So all the bots you develop, you have to put it on the orchestrator. So from orchestrator, you can deploy the bots into the different servers and machines. You can govern the bots from there, right? If you want to change the timing of the certain bots, you can do it from the orchestrator. If you want to do certain kind of configuration changes, you should be able to do from the orchestrator. You don't have to go to the machines on which the bot run, right? You don't have to specifically log into those machines, go to that path where the bot is installed, right? Because that will give the headache to the IT. It is become a nightmare, because there are hundreds of the bots which are running on the enterprises, right? And there is no way like you can go to the different system manually, and you can do that, maintenance of the each bots on the different system. So that's why orchestration is very much important. and and it gives an immense benefit, like the bot deployment becomes very easy. You can schedule the bots from the one's application itself. Monitoring becomes very easy, because from the dashboard you can see, which bots are live, which bots are running, which bots have thrown an exception. So at least you can call up the a person who is responsible for that bot, so what that person can immediately take the actions. You can do the asset management very well, because these all bots having some configuration parameter. These all bots is having carrying the login credentials and passwords, because these bots are actually working on the underlying streams or applications, right? So these all will be stored into the orchestrator. So from the one command header, you can do the all the configurations and settings. You don't have to go to the particular machine and open the config file and update those config files, right? Even password policies can be handled through this orchestrator. Like you apply whatever the password policy, it will be applicable to all the bots. If any login credential is changed, it will be applied to all the bots from the one orchestrator. And yes, it is a role-based access. Definitely, it will have. So, like the business user will be able to just monitor the bots, right? Admin is allowed to do the certain changes to the bots, and the developer, they are allowed to upload the to the bots to the orchestrator as a repository. So as I told, like I talked about UiPath, right? So there are many tools are available in RPA. So these are the topmost well-known RPA tools, which is covered by the Gartners and Everest as an analyst. So UiPath is number one, as you know. Power Automate by Microsoft, Automation Anywhere, TrueBot, Cofex, Blue Prism. So these Pega, these are very early comers. They were actually before the Power Automate and UiPath, but after a certain time, UiPath and automation have actually taken the lead in the market. Now these tools also, coming up with the agentic AI kind of thing, so which I will talk about later. So what is the RP implementation life cycle? So in RP implementation life cycle, these are your SDLC cycle, where you will do the requirement gathering, right? You do the design and development, you test it, and then you deploy it. So similarly, in it follows a similar life cycle here. So first step is the process discovery we talk about, right? Then you do the feasibility study. So feasibility study is very important. So what I here mean feasibility study, like what happens technically, you have to check whether the bot will be able to access my applications or not, right? It has a captcha over it or not? Because the captcha is meant for that, so no bot should work on those applications. So human should allow to like make sure that human is actually operating that application. So are there is a captcha? Are these applications is running behind the Citrix? So those kind of feasibility you need to check. Like certain types of technology generally does not allow access of those elements of the your screen. So in that case, there is a different way to handle those. So those kind of feasibility you must do it. So that is a very important step in the RPA implementation life cycle. Then of course design development, testing, and UAT. And once the UAT is done and you deploy to the live production, then there is a hypercare stage, which is very important. Like what happens after the deployment, right? Though we have incorporated in the log files and process log files, hypercare actually this stage actually where you monitor the bot for at least let's say 1 week and on few number of transactions. So at least it gives the idea of the stability of the application, because the bot it works on the underlying application, so it heavily dependent upon the stability of the underlying application. Let's say it works on the core banking system, or the you can say the core finance system, or any insurance core system, right? If that application's behavior changes because of the network issue, because of the load issue, then there could be some kind of vibration on the bot. So the hypercare is very important, like, because then you will get the confidence. Okay, so many transactions, the system is working properly. It didn't throw any you can say the exceptions, right? It worked very well. So that actually gives the confidence to the developer and as well as the business user also. So that hypercare is very much important. Even in that stage, like if you come across certain kind of thing, so immediately you can put those conditions, or you can put some kind of delays. You can handle some kind of exception which are not handled in the during the design and development stage. That actually hypercare stage actually helps you to identify all those points, and so that you can incorporate those points as well. So the hypercare stage is very important. And finally, then maintenance and continuous improvement. So that is a typical software development life cycle. After you release the bots into the production, so some of the suggestions will come, some minor changes happen, so that you need to incorporate, right? So that's the typical last stage of the maintenance and continuous improvement. So moving to the next, so use cases across the industry. So, like, there are hundreds of thousands of use cases in across the industry. Like if you go to the banking, so banking is, that it is a fully a data driven organization, right? It has a only data. It's only as a numbers, right? So there are a lot of processes available in banking, like retail banking, liability sections, wealth banking, right? Corporate banking. So there are almost all processes. If you can see that will be a ideal candidate for the RPA. But as I mentioned, like that business value, that matrix, you have to decide the process very carefully. So there are some of the processes I've mentioned here, which are actually, we have automated through the RPA, or many banks are actually automated through the RPA. Credit limit extension, limit loading, EMI registrations. So they are many. I don't know whether you people from the banking will be familiar of these processes. Debit card issuance. So these are many processes which are actually very RPA friendly. You can do the automation, and these are very complex processes. At least some around 10 to 20 people are working daily basis on those processes, and this gives a very good benefit for the banks too if they automate the to the RPA. Now they are actually exploring whether they could do the automation through the agentic AI. These are some processes from the insurance, right? Where actually these are a good candidate for the RPA. New policy issuance, tax compliance, endorsement processing, premium accounting, payment reconciliation. This payment reconciliation is very typical process, right? It comes in all the verticals like banking, insurance, logistics, housing finance. So all they have to do the reconciliation. Like they have to download the bank statement report, and they have the other data which is there in the accounting system or ERP, right? And they have to match the transactions. So banking system has their entry, and they have to take the entries that they have entered into the accounting system, and they have to match, amount and the description and the dates, and they have to reconcile. If the reconciliation happen, which is fine, and if reconciliation not happen, then the users, takes the decision, like whether we have to wait for more days, whether payment will received or the entry will be made into the systems, So this is a very unique process, and but it doesn't require too much UI interaction because the bot has to just go to particular system and download the report, and rest of the operation happens offline on the Excel or CSV file. The healthcare, so there are many other processes from the healthcare verticals, healthcare domain, medical billing, data ingestions, discharge instruction processing, staff onboarding. Staff onboarding is again a very common process which will be required on almost all the verticals, right? Because when you onboard the staff, you have to create some login ID. This is typically falls under the HR or IT kind of department onboarding, because that's they are handling the 90% of the activity of the staff onboarding, right? So like giving the access right, creation of their email ID, login IDs, etc. So generally IT does that. So that all can be done by the bots. Manufacturing, like accounts payable, accounts receivable. Again, see here the bank reconciliation is there. ERP reporting, you need to download many reports from the ERP, do some massaging, tax reconciliations, then the book closures, order booking, purchase order booking. So manufacturing also has a many process, but this process is generally over around the ERP side of things and some invoices and the purchase order. And these are certain process from the logistics, So logistic also like very good, we can say verticals where we can do the lot of automations. But here in logistic, what I have seen like 50% applications are very legacy applications. Some of the core applications are built on the mainframe applications. But really, it's a very good area where RPA can be applied very efficiently. So billing process, some OCR processes are there, fuel consumption and vehicle tracking, vehicle registration process, driver payout process. So many processes in logistic also are a good candidate for the RPA automation. So now the important part, like we have learned about the selections, we learn about the tools and technology we can use. We have seen some use cases, right, for the different verticals. Now the question is now for a given organization like want to enterprise want to start the RPA. So what should be the models, like how they should start it, right? So there are some governance framework is there and some center of excellence models are there, right? So that will help you govern the entire the RPA program in your organization, because you cannot start ad hoc this way. Like earlier, as I said, like in traditional automations, when we used to do the automation, like we can select some of the big process and we can do certain analysis and we can start the automation. They develop some API, integrate the system. No, this is we cannot do it, because here what happens, you have to decide from the tool side also which tools and technology you will use, right? What kind of the standard you will use, right? What kind of the framework you will use to create the pipeline of the processes that you should go for the automations. So governance is very much important. So this is the reason, main reason why we need the RPA governance in place, like to ensure the consistency across the organization, ensure that the security and compliances are taken care, while we do the automation, because this directly interacts with your systems, right? The human intervention will be less. So the compliance and security plays a very important roles here, right? Then you have to make sure that the different departments which are actually interested in the automation and they are taking the part on it, so they should not work on the silos, otherwise it will become a very problematic for the IT or as well as the whole organization, because they will select their own tool, they will select their own processes. Some of the department will be able to do the implementation fast and they will be able to derive the benefit quickly. Some of the department maybe select some wrong processes, they have select some different criteria, right? And they will end up spending more money on that but will not get the desired benefit out of it, right? So the we should must stop them working siloed when we are actually working on the RPA governance program. And it also governance actually helps in scaling the entire program, because they have the some standards and some framework in place, and it also provide the overall the bot performance, and change control they manage. Like tomorrow if the higher authority asks about how much benefit we got from the RPA program. So that at least the if the government is in place and one responsibility is there, to the one department or COE, they will be able to give the numbers properly. So in RPA governance and framework, these are the typically three layers. One is the strategic layer, which actually the executive leadership teams handles, and they create the visions and roadmap, right? They funds the RPA program, right? Or the tool procurement, and they can influence the all the business department, so that's the strategic layer, right? And the output of this layer is the COE, right? So they decide to form a RPA COE for that. And there is a operational layer, right? So this operational layer basically it comprises of all the business units, their head, and the team or vendor which are working on the RPA program, right? Tools and technologies, IT teams. So these all are comes in the operational layer, and most of the efforts are actually spent by this operational layer. And finally is the control layer where the orchestrator comes, right? And those are the people actually who are responsible for supporting the live bots, right? And also them security and compliance, and those teams also be part of this control layer. And supporting component like the change management process, KPI dashboard, knowledge base and documentation. These are the supporting components of the entire RPA governance framework. And this is very, as I explained, this is very much important for the large organization, who are actually uh, doing the RPA program in large scale. So the RPA Center for Excellence COE models, right? So this is very common. Like as I mentioned, like any organization has to set up the COE for the RPA. That is must, right? And there are different types of RPA COE models. So one is the centralized COE, where only one team is responsible for governing the anti-RPA program. They will define the standards, they will select the tools and technology, whether to go for the UiPath, whether to go for the automation anywhere or any other tool, right? They will select their vendors, right? And they will create their training plans and support, how the support will be given to this RPA. And they have the responsibility of chasing the business unit, and you can say the creating the pipeline for the processes, which process they have to take first. So these are whole, like one department or one body will be responsible, and that is a centralized COE, right? The good part is that every control is with them, right? So whatever they dictate, that every business unit and all vendors, they have to follow that. The only one thing is that the initial level, the scalability could be an issue, because uh, they will select the priority, right? Even if the business unit want to come up with certain processes first, but they will decide. So, but after that, it like it will go well. Like though initially any organization with the centralized COE, some business unit might have some kind of impact because it is governed by the centralized body. And the another one is a federated. So in federated, what happens uh, like they COE just creates the model, right? They define some best practices, they give us the tools, they give us the vendor, right? Okay, this tool you use, these are the vendor, you have to go with it. And all the implementations, management, executions, and the controlling part comes with the business unit. So now the all the tools and technologies provided by the COE to the business unit. Now business unit has a free hand to select the processes to start the automation, right? How they will which process they will take first, right? Which uh, how the support will be being taken care, so these all the responsibility will be the business unit. And what happens, like when the centralized COE matures, they gives the rules and responsibility to the business unit. Okay, now these are the activity you should do it, and now then it becomes a federated kind of COE. And the another one is decentralized, like all the business unit have their own independence of selecting vendors, tools, and technologies. Uh, you will get the good scalability there. The problem is there, initially the chances of success will be less here, because all the business units are not in sync, right? They have their own methodology. They may come up selecting the different vendors, or different tools. Like one of our customer, when we started the engagement late, after the RPA came into the market. And we came to know that that vendor has a decentralized approach, and we found that different business unit has actually opted for the different tools. One business unit has procured the UiPath licenses, another business unit has procured the automation enable licenses, third business unit were actually not actually going by the license. They were using the Selenium framework. They're using some Python kind of libraries to the automations, right? So the standards are different. Best practices are not in place. The different tools, they are incurring a lot of cost. So that is the drawback of the decentralized process. So any organization has to start with a centralized approach, and once matured, then slowly they can move to the federated kind of CA. So now let's talk about some common pitfalls that we must avoid, and which are the best practice that we should follow for the success. So the common pitfalls, which are very not a complex things, very easy steps, like like we should not select the process which are unstable, right? And we should not go by the process where the stakeholders buy-in are not there, right? The lack of stakeholder buy-in will create an issue because you will not get the conclusion fast, and you will encourage a lot of putting a lot of cost and effort there. So poor change management. So because once you go live with the bots, so there could lot of suggestion will come, let's bot handle these also, let bot do this part also automatically. But once you derive some sustainable sizable kind of benefit, then only you start taking the change request. Otherwise what will happen, from the day one, if all the changes will start coming up, you will not come to know what kind of benefit you are deriving it. So the change management is very important. Right? So poor change management definitely lead to the failure of the RPA program. And as I just mentioned you, the COE, right? So clear ownership is very important, right? If the clear ownership is not there, the you will incur in the higher cost in the automation. So these are the very common pitfalls, and I think so some of these are very applicable to the normal software delivery and product management also. And the best practice is you start with small and scale fast, as I mentioned, right? The process which is less complex gives the less benefit, but you start with that because that gives the confidence to the business as well as the senior management also. So start with small and scale fast. Engage business user early. That's very important. Like as I the stakeholder management is very important. So if business user are engaged in this journey from the day one, so that will be give the confidence to them also, right? So they will come up with the more processes. They will give the COE to the list of all the processes that they are interested to do it, where they can derive the benefit, they can save the cost, right? So the engagement of the business user are very much important. And monitoring and performance, we have to keep on monitoring the performance of the bot. We can regular basis we have to optimize the bots. Like optimizing bots means, I will say, let's say there are hundreds of bots running on a different machines and server, then you must analyze every month, like how many bots are typically run for how many hours. Are there any hours actually which are we see in the idles, none of the bots are working, machine is idle. So can we utilize that gap and put some more bots there, or can we put some more processes in that ideal time, right? So that we can utilize the full systems, and or we can say utilize the more bots and ensure the compliance and audited. All the security aspects, password policies. So that we should is the best practice, because that we should ensure that like all the passwords are encrypted well in the orchestrator. All the way you provide the access to the bot, or you can say, let's say many processes access the shared path, right? So that shared path and their credentials are well maintained. They are encrypted well in the orchestrator. So whatever the compliance and audit related, right? So that has to be we must follow for the making this program successful. Otherwise, what will happen? Right, some of the processes, like no, when we automate, but then the compliance teams comes, when the audit teams comes, and they say no, this is not taken care. I think so. You should not automate this process. Then we have to put some extra effort on that to bring those compliances in place. So it's better we should think of that compliance and audit from the beginning. So these are the best practices, to make the RPA program successful. So what is the future trend? Like RP is there, some other intelligent, other automations are already we were doing, right? So what is the future, right? So now you can see the first the automation, we were doing the traditional automation, then RPS come, then IDP come, intelligent document processing, where actually all the documents, invoices or handwritten documents, all those documents you can capture this data, access this data, and with the help of the RPA, you can push this data to the respective system, to the workflow or BPM systems, right? Then there are some AI/ML came, So these AI/ML actually just help to do certain decision making. Let's say you have certain kind of a text in the one process, right, where you have to say that whether this response was a neutral or positive response or a negative response. So there actually you can have AI/ML very specific model build, and you can put that particular AI model there, and you can do some kind of automation there. Don't have to read that entire response and wait for the manual intervention from the human, right? So the people are started putting some AI ML component on the RPA flow, and now there is the agentic AI where actually the AI or agents, right? They themselves will do the RPA part. They themselves will do the capture part. They themselves will do the certain kind of decision making, right? The way I explained you, right? Like you give some comments on the, or you can decide whether the text was a neutral or positive response or negative response. So this all will be now taken care by the agentic AI. So the journey started from the RPA, it moved to the IDP, AIML. Now it is moving to the agentic AI. So the intelligent automations is will have the very, you can say, very bright for the all the enterprises you to derive the benefits. So what is the like summary and takeaways from this session? So of course, RP is a strategic enabler, right? When we talk about the digital transformations journey, so RP is a very strategic enabler. Besides the other platforms, governance and planning are the key things, because that's a very important for any organization. Small organizations, fine, but very big organization, it has to be there. And intelligent automation is the next wave with the like the ways the agents and AIs are coming. So that is the next wave. So yes, I have done. So any we can start now with the question answers.
Yeah, thank you, Shantilal. I think your video is again.
Okay.
So can you just share and share now again? Yeah, that is fine. You can make it a full screen. Yeah. Thank you, Shantilal. So there are three questions as of now. So thank you for this interesting and brilliant session. I will just read the questions one by one. I think one was already answered in the due course of your presentation. This was by Soumya Ghoshal. She was asking, please share a few popular use case examples for RPA. It will help in better understanding. So I think you shared some three, four slides. So do you want to share any important or major use of RPA in in our use case examples for RPA?
Yeah.
In
So
total.
what happens like generally popular use cases if I go about, right? For example, let's say from the banking side, right? So the account opening, account closure, then reconciliations, then you can say the SARSAI, right? So these are the very popular use cases in the banking side. And if you come to the manufacturing industries, so accounts payable and receivables and reconciliation, these are very popular use cases. And from logistics side, vehicle registrations, billings, ratings, so those are very popular use cases. And of course, there are very other common use cases like of staff onboarding, right, and customer service request processing. So this is the typical use cases will be applicable to all the verticals, like customer request processing, right? So for example, let's say I have some uh, want to change my email ID or want to change certain my personal information, or I have some other queries to the banks or my insurance provider, right? So I will call that guy, and I will make a service request from their portal, right? And those service requests will be received by them. They will flow this information to their CRM systems, and finally they read the CRM system and then they update, fulfill their my requirements, right, and then update the tickets in their CRM system, right. So these are some of the very common and largely used automated by the different verticals.
Okay, next question is from Jayant Rangari. His question is RPA is perfect on server system side. However, on consumer side perspective, it feels like human interaction touch on call is lost. So let's say on a bank's IVR call, the call becomes so long to get the right solution. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, you are right. So you are some extent right, because when we IVR, when the customer executives are sitting on the talking to the customer, right, and sometimes the interactions goes on the long discussion, right, because some of there a lot of queries are there. So some extent you are right. Like RPA doesn't give that much of benefit to that particular scenarios, but the large extents, like no, are we actually now coming with the all pre-populated data? But there are many customer side, where you can say they've yet not used the full IRV capability, and they are actually using the RPA. I hope I could answer your question.
Okay, the same person is asking, can you tell us some more use cases for telecom?
Yeah, so telecom as such a domain, right? So what we have observed, like we couldn't find too much use cases as far as the telecom domain is concerned. But in the telecom industries, so there are different functions like HR, IT, admin, right? So there, because these are the area which has a common processes for like the way we have the in different industries, right? So in the telecom industry, those processes are we can automate or we should go for it. But as a domain, technology, telephone industry, there are very hardly few processes are there. I could not recollect those processes, but not more than 10 actually. But of course, you can reach out to me through my LinkedIn profile. I will help you to identify the process which are those we have actually come across from the telecom industry.
Okay, I'm sharing your LinkedIn profile again in the chat box. Next question is from Anish Srimali. His question is, in the current trends of using generative AI, how RPA will be useful as industries are exploring and implementing generative AI for most of the manual tasks that can be automated. So in this scenario, how RPA will be useful for industries?
Yeah, so that's a very good questions, right? And I will let me tell you one thing. Like the people are now actually exploring the generative AI and they are going for the agentic AI, right? But in one of the slide I mentioned that the RPA is a non-invasive, right? You don't have to change any of your processes, any of your systems, right? Correct. And once you go for the generative and agentic AI, you are very well aware. Like it has to be, you have to make some database available. You have to expose some your API calls to agentic AI, right? And even some of the tools which agentic AI use, that are not clearly matured enough, right? So I think so. It will not completely replace the RPA, but of course, some of the processes which are not highly depend on the UI, right? Like from the reconciliation I'm talking about, right? Excel based or some file operation based. So those will be, I think so, agentic AI can handle it. Right now they can start it, or it is actually eating up the pie. But RPA is still is there and it still remain there, right? It's very difficult for agentic AI to replace all the RPA, because then they have to change a lot of their processes, lot of their underlying systems is. And I think so from the compliance purpose perspective and from the cost perspective also, it is not affordable. There are two parts. One is the LLM's cost and another is the implementation cost again. And the third part is the changing your underlying process in application. So RPA will remain valid even though the AI will come.
Okay, there is one more question from Anish Rimali. I think it is the same question put forward in a different sentences. It's just I just read it again.
Mhm.
Agentic AI can also do most of the tasks such as email automation, reconciliation processes in banking. How RPA differs from AI, or how it can be more beneficial in comparison to AI?
Correct. So the straight away, I told you like AI, when you do the email automations or reconciliation automation, right? So there actually you are coming up with the some extra hardware, like the rack, some database. You need to do the subscription of some model, right? You need to check it, test it. You have to evaluate that agent that you developed, right? And in RPA, already pre-built components are there, right? It's already running from some of the banks so many years or months, right? So so I don't see any logic which is existing running, right? Which is a non-inventive when you come up with the agentic AI. So from the implementation point of view, from the maintenance point of view, the RPA is I think so better or well versed against the agentic AI if you do the same process through both the technologies.
Okay. There is one last question as of now from Amit Auti. His question is, how can RPAs utilized in private and public cloud?
Yeah, so what happens like there are many processes or many applications which are available on the public cloud, right? So that you can no issue that you can be handled private cloud also. I know never seen any issue. It's only depends upon the customer, whether the customer which are those their systems or their processes are running on the private and public cloud. So depending upon that, actually, we can do the automation. And RPA is actually open for both public and private cloud both. So there is no as such limitations on that.
Okay, so Amit says thank you for the answer. And I think that was the last question. So thank you, Shantilal, for this interesting and brilliant session. I will also want to share one small experience. Since I am a production engineer
Mm-hmm.
during my in plant trainings days like 20 years back, when I was in doing my production engineering, and I got like in production engineering we have to do 6 months industrial training. So I happened to see one example of RPA used on NC and CNC machines used in Godrej and Boyce Manufacturing Company for
Mm-hmm.
machining of critical components to be used in defense projects. So
Mm-hmm.
though it was on a very basic level, because I think RPA started in the 2000s, some years back. So though it was on a very basic level then, but was really awesome to see. So I can now relate those automated processes now, because
Mm-hmm.
it was mechanical related to mechanical. So I'm not into that much into RPA or AI. So whatever like jargons you have
Mm-hmm.
used for, so those are jargons for me. So but then this is my experience. I think they were using RPA software technology on NCCNC machines to manufacturing very critical components made out
Mm-hmm.
for the like Russian materials which were
Mm-hmm.
imported from Russia. And there it was like it was all programmed, and then it was just automated on the shop floor. So those were actually made use for defense projects, and I was working on BrahMos missile at that time during my
Okay.
in-plant training.
Great.
So I think that is also an example of RPA, right?
No, actually, that's the robotic from the hardware side, I can say, right? Because even LCLC machines, whatever the you are talking about the automations from the hardware side, it's not from the software side. So
Okay.
that's a robotic, but it comes in the I can say the industrial robotics. It's not the software robotics.
Okay, so that
Okay.
is how I could relate, because
Yeah, yeah.
as a mechanical production engineer we are into oil and gas industry, so where we are not using these kinds of
Correct.
technology. But
You
then
might
at
have
that,
seen like lot of robotic industrial robotics are in the automobile industry. These are big robotics arm. They are lifting the car chassis. They are doing some welding on that. They are fitting some part on that. Correct, right? They
yes,
are doing
yes.
some galvanizations. So these are actually industrial robotics, and these are the industrial robots, right? And nowadays, I think so more and more companies are going into the industrial robotics. In many of the processes or many of the production facilities, they are putting industrial robotics, right? You might have seen some of the videos where, there is a robotics arm which actually doing the cooking in the kitchen, right? So that is the from the industrial robotics side. But from the software robotics side, I will tell you, like the Gartner came this RPA concept in 2000, I think so 14 and 15, right? Where these UiPath and the other technologies actually come into the market. But I will tell you my experience of the RPA. I have done very first this similar kind of program developed myself when I was a developer in 2004 5. It's almost 20 years back. And I will tell you, who is one of our department, accounting department. So they used to get some Excel file where some data was there, and they want to push that data into the ERP system, SAP system. We were using the SAP as a ERP there. And that time, like from our head, like so we thought of like, can we automate that? So now question was, how do we automate that? We were exploring like what to do this, how we read this data from Excel, how we actually take the control of the other system, how this data will be populated on those SAP's field, right? While exploration, we came to know that there is already option available in SAP where you can write a script, VB script, from the technical technology perspective. I'm just telling you. So there is already option is there. You just download that scripting template. You put the data that you want to upload into SAP, and just you invoke that. So so just when these RPA came, so I was little bit surprised. Okay, I have did it 10 years back using the scripting options of the SAP, right? And now these tools are coming with the more, I can say, with the different capabilities and the more options. Like rather than only SAP, it can communicate with the other technologies as well. So this kind of automations already were there. As I told you, like automated testing was there, right? So, but it was not given a name as a proper like robotic process automation that can be leveraged to the any industries, any application wherever there is a software and data are available.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for your explanation and information.
Sure,
We, as a on behalf of PMI Mumbai chapter, please accept a certificate of appreciation
sure.
from
Thank you.
our end. So if you can just unshare, I can share the certificate with you.
Sure.
Just a minute, I'm just sharing the certificate. Can you see the certificate?
Mm, yes, I can see that, Shikha. Thank you very much.
Okay, so just a minute. Yeah, so please accept a certificate of appreciation from our end as a small token of thanks for accepting
Thank
our
you.
invitation to present today's PM Pit Stop session, and looking forward to invite you for presenting other interesting topics. So
Sure, sure.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It will be emailed to you also, and feedback form link, and the people who are joined today, please PDU code has been shared in the chat box, and feedback link with the emailer will also be sent to you for your feedback. So thank you for all for joining this session, and PDU code, please note down the PDU code shared in chat box, and you can claim 1.5 PDU for this session. So thank you everyone for joining this session, and thank you once again Shantilal for your
Thank you.
insightful session, and meet you next. Okay, bye.
Yeah, thanks PMI. Thanks all participants. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.